So there's a good chance that you're going to be training without your normal facilities over the next few weeks, whether that's because your gym is shut or you're self-isolating at home. So what I thought would be really good to do is ask Paddy, who's the coach at my local gym, at the Crunch Gym, what he would recommend as the best use of your time while you can't do all the things that you would normally do, like climb on a bouldering wall, get on the circuit board. You know, how can we make really good use of this time, even though it's ideally not really what you want to be doing? Is there some sort of schedule, program, exercises that are going to really help us out over the next few weeks at home that will benefit in the long term when we go back to regular training? Paddy talks about the upcoming weeks as a kind of off-season, where we actually have time to train things that we don't normally focus on.
Due to one reason or another, we're in a self-imposed or potentially not self-imposed off-season at the moment. If you look at how other sports operate, the off-season is time to correct imbalances or build on specific weaknesses that you wouldn't have time to do during your main season. So if we're climbing a lot, 5-6 days a week, or any amount that you can't then go to the gym enough, you wouldn't go work on the little things that you really should spend a bit of time on to kind of really build a broader picture. It's not the most important thing for your climbing, but if you did it, it would be great, but you don't get the normal time to do it. So this is a really good opportunity to do things that aren't climbing related specifically, but help you generally.
We probably won't be at places like this over the next few weeks, so we won't get in much of this or this. I guess a lot of people will have a hangboard at home, and this would definitely be a focus for me to maintain my grip strength. I'd normally follow advice from people like Lattice Training or Eva Lopez, which I'll mention below. I think what I'm hoping to get from Paddy is a sense of what else I can do to supplement my training while in self-isolation. He outlines a few exercises that will take maybe 20 minutes and could really help to break up the monotony of being at home all day. We started off talking about stretches that might be useful for climbers.
Stretching is a temporary adaptation where our nervous system relaxes into a longer range of movement or motion. This disappears very quickly. So if you're going to do stretching, you have to do it a lot, or ideally you stretch a lot and then you build it by strengthening that range of movement. Ideally under load, but that's not available to us. So the things we're going to look at today are, in my experience, when most people struggle to move, and that's with their hip flexors, their piriformis through their rotation of their hips, and then upper back lats and rotator cuff generally. So the first stretch we're going to do is a hip flexor stretch. You've probably seen a variation of this before. 90-degree bend in this knee. Now here we're going to go for hip extension. So I'm going to try and push my hip forward by contracting there. If I'm feeling it in my quad, I'm a bit too far forward, so I'm going to come back to there and really try and push that through. What I'm then going to do is I'm going to raise this arm, same side, up. You see a lot of people try and do it, they bend over and twist that way. Doesn't really do what we're after, so I'm just going to try and reach as high as I can. Up, and just getting that hip flexor coming out nice and steadily through. Next move we're going to look at is what we call pigeon pose, which is a stretch to help externally rotate the femur through the hip. From a kneeling position here, I'm going to rotate my foot down. I'm going to make sure I don't exceed the 90 degrees that I've created. Hand goes behind. I slowly push my hip backwards. I don't allow anything else to move. I'm going to rock into my left hip, trying to push it down as much as I can. Sit, and not create like this. So if I do end up like that, back to starting position, hold it, and rock through. Oh. Last stretch we're going to do is a combination of lats, rotator cuff, upper back. It's a lot of stuff at once, really, because there's so much going on. You will require a water bottle, a foam roller, carton of milk, something rigid. Where's my foam roller gone? So I'm going to place this between my hands, place my elbows on here, and then I'm going to stretch backwards as much as I can. I'm going to push. I'm going to slowly shift backwards and try and get my torso down as far as I can. If I didn't have this thing here, I'd be like, yeah, I've got this, and I'd slowly collapse like this.
Next, we moved on to strengthening exercises, thinking about hip strength, shoulder strength, and core.
Hip thrusting is a single leg activity. Again, what we're trying to be doing is putting weight into one leg and standing up on one leg, so we hook the leg we're not going to be using behind us onto a bench or chair. I sit down, I push into that front heel, and I come back up again. So I'm after a 90-degree position and pushing up without letting my knee collapse in. Half of the reason we need to be doing this in our off-season time is because we need to stabilize through our external rotation of our femur, which is that movement. So if we're trying to make sure we don't collapse, because then we can't push our hip and open it. So we're really trying to keep it rigidly still as we stand up. Hip thrust wise, again, if you've got a chair, I guess you could technically use a sofa. Shoulder blades just on the bench, trying to get solid position there. So we try and put the weight into our heels, push up, try not to curl through our back, down again, back up. If you want to put your hands on the bench, that's fine, but making sure you're not resting through the shoulder blades. Most people should end up not shifting their weight too much on this. I'm moving a little bit, but the aim is to get through, squeeze the glutes at the end, and push. Again, if you don't have access to a bench or it's too difficult, you can get down to the floor and just thrust up from here, which is it's a glute bridge technically. You can even add single leg if you've got an imbalance between one glute or the other, potentially. Pull-ups. I'm guessing you've got plenty of footage of pull-ups.
I have way too much footage of pull-ups. Roll the archives. My favourite pull-up variations are the weighted pull-up and the assisted one-arm pull-up. But if I've just got a bar to work with, I focus on getting in a really high volume of pull-ups. One variation I found really effective is the French pull-up. This is where you hold a 5-second pause during each rep. On the first rep, it's at the top. On the second rep, it's halfway down. And on the third rep, it's 3/4 of the way down. Then you repeat.
So one thing that climbers don't do, or don't train that much, is horizontal pulling. When you're lying down on the floor, you can then grab the bar just slightly wider than your torso width, pull your chest up, squeeze your shoulder blades together, try not to thrust your way up, keeping nice and solid and pulling through. And you can get yourself some horizontal pulling in there. If you think about how we do upper body oversimplified, deals with pushing both horizontally and vertically, and it deals with pulling both horizontally, which is what I just discussed, and vertically. Climbing being dynamic in as much as you move around space. You're not always vertical, you're not always horizontal. You're not always reaching stuff above you. Reach stuff out to the side, directly above you when you're horizontal, below you. So just training scapular retraction going down through the lat is kind of, well, it's only doing one form. So as we talked about when we did barbell rows, this is a way of doing it with just a bodyweight variation there. Okay? Yeah. Okay, so YTWs, I'm a bit frail, so I'm using this mat. YTWs are basically just pushing your shoulder into the rotation, to the ends of your range of movement in various planes. So from this position here, I extend my arms into making a Y position, I lift them off the ground, hold it for a second, come back down again. Repeat the process. I can then put my thumbs up, which deals with a bit more external rotation, which wouldn't hurt, because most climbers lack quite good external rotation. So that's not a bad thing there. Try not to arch my back up, trying to stay planted and pushing up. So that's the Y. The T is much simpler. Arms out to the side, make a T, squeeze your shoulder blades together, push up, back down again. I'm arching my back here so the microphone can actually hear me, but we don't really want to be doing it much. Head down, squeeze. The last one we're going to do is a W. Get yourself into a W position here. Try and really externally rotate. Try not to be like this. Try and be flat. Squeeze your blades together. If we consider, as we'll talk further in another video, core-wise we've got anti-flexion, anti-lateral flexion, and anti-rotation. If we're just going to pick one to do at home, anti-flexion is a good starting point. So the traditional thing to think about is a plank. Most people, when they do a plank, don't really actually do anti-flexion. They just dip their hips down or dip their lower back through, and they just kind of sit into their spine a bit rather than actually using their core. So I like to do a hollow hold because it kind of stops that. So what you're going to do in a hollow hold, so you go lie down on the floor. Now currently I've got an arch in my back. because my feet are flat on the floor. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my legs nice and high up to here. Now, I've got quite miserable hamstrings, so for me, straightening is quite difficult. But from here, my lower back is pressed aggressively in the floor. Place my hands forward, head off, and then I extend to the stage where, as you can see, I'm already shaking. But my lower back is pressed super hard into the floor. I'm doing it. I don't want to go so far that I then arch, because I can hold this relatively easily. Oh yeah, and don't forget to keep breathing. Don't hold your breath. These shoes are so heavy. Ugh. Boulder X's are not good shoes for hollow holding in. If you have lots of time and half of this training or half of your climbing training is kind of a part of a routine and trying from a mental health perspective, being stuck indoors all day is quite difficult. So I would consider doing this a little bit and often, trying to break up the monotony of being inside all the time or, isolating all the time. So 20 minutes 3 times a day. Just do that. And actually, the volume of training you do there is much better, because if you do it 3 times a day for 14 days, you've actually built up a lot more training time than if you managed it once or twice a week at the gym, even if you did it for 60 minutes. So actually, this is a great opportunity to build that single leg strength, to work on that core strength, to develop your hip extension, to rotate through your hips better, to open up your shoulders, to pull through your rhomboids more, to externally rotate through your scaps and so on. It gives you a much better opportunity to move effectively on the wall, and you've really kind of tightened up all the little holes that you wouldn't spend time on normally in gym, because climbing is the most important thing to spend your time on. But especially when you can't go and do that, this is a great opportunity. Yeah?